And gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I know you're very excited to see each other, and I'm actually excited to see many of you, but if you could find your seats. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm Mary Ann Litzman, Superintendent of Schools, and welcome to our renovated auditorium, which looks very different than when many of you were here in school and attended this high school. We are grateful to our Board of Education and our school community in supporting a bond several years ago, which enabled us to arrive at this day with this beautiful auditorium, which technically is now a theater. As our intentions were interrupted by COVID, which is stubbornly still around, we are happy to be able to schedule this event, and some COVID protocols are still in place. So I thank you all for your patience. But a few housekeeping items before we begin. In case of an emergency requiring an orderly and quick exit from this venue, please be aware of the exit signs. 2 at the back of the auditorium, which you're probably familiar with, empties out into the lobby, and you could go right outside, and 2 exits to my right and left. This one still goes out the same way as you might remember, a little to the left and outside. But if you have to exit this way, for some of you over here, it'll take you into the hallway, and if you go left, you can still find the lobby. But we've had new renovation of our music suite, so if you go right, you can't go outside straight ahead. You have to turn right and go outside the front of the building. So that's in case of an exit here. We also have, and maybe these were where the bathrooms were when you were here, straight outside the lobby, there's a hallway on the right side. So that's where the bathrooms are. Okay, and now to formally begin, I ask you to rise for the pledge to the flag, and what school function would not be without that. But for tonight, if you would remain standing for a moment of silence, as we remember the horror of school violence in Texas and the loss of precious children and teachers, in solidarity and condolences for their families. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please be seated. Besides all of you alumni, our guests this evening, we also have strong support from our present administration and Board of Education for Hicksville Public Schools. Though this evening, seated over in this section, we have Ms. Brenda Judson, who's Vice President of our Board of Education. We have trustees Linda Parmalee and Irene Carlamusto. We also have our Board of Education-elect, Annette Beiner, our president of our HCT, Stephanie Sello, and our president of Hicksville PTA Council. So thank you for all your support, and thank you for attending tonight. This evening we've come together to recognize Chuck Arnold, and rename this auditorium as a theater in your honor, Chuck. Why Mr. Arnold? Mr. Arnold, a man of music and passion. Mr. Arnold is a graduate of Colgate University, where he received a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Arts and New York University Master of Arts in Music Education. His passion for music led him to a career in teaching music. Mr. Arnold was hired in Hicksville Public Schools in September of 1961, and he retired in June of 1989, a 28-year-long song and music with passion. Mr. Arnold, a man of teaching and learning. Mr. Arnold directed Hicksville High School chorus and glee club for boys and girls and was the music and vocal director for wonderful shows, including a best-loved production of Sweet Charity. Mr. Arnold provided musical opportunities for students at venues around New York State and even traveled to Florida with his students. Mr. Arnold's passion for music and teaching supported students through many NISMA competitions, and he was chairman of the All-State Committee. Bloom and grow. Mr. Arnold will always be a teacher, and his time spent at Hicksville High School exemplified his greatest act of optimism, believing in every student, preparing them not only for success in the courses he taught, but always with a kind and listening ear, helping students to navigate adolescence and life with a belief that every student can reach a higher potential. Administrators found Mr. Arnold to be an excellent musician and teacher who stimulates the will to learn in his students, and found him to be living proof of a dedicated teacher. Students shared he was the best music teacher ever, opening up whole new worlds for them. Mr. Arnold's classes, chorales, and madrigals were the happiest parts of their high school life. Students shared that Mr. Arnold not only gave them confidence in singing, but also confidence as a person and as a teenager. Mr. Arnold's passion for music was infectious, and a student graduate of the Boston Conservatory shared that having Mr. Arnold as a teacher in high school was life-changing, not only inspiring knowledge in music, but also in navigating the teenage years. So, a man of music and passion, teaching and learning, helping students to bloom and grow. Chuck, we have some of your past students who will share their words with you directly a little later in the program. First, I would like to introduce our Vice President of our Board of Education, Ms. Brenda Judson, to share a few words. Ms. Judson?
Good evening. I'm very honored to be here tonight, and I think I might start by saying that Mrs. Litzman and I did not write our speeches together, but many of the same sentiments will be echoed by me in this brief speech this evening. I'm honored to be here tonight to commemorate this special occasion on behalf of your Board of Education. As someone who was actively involved in the arts myself as a teen, and other Hicksville Board of Education members who hold the performing arts near and dear to our hearts. In today's world, as school districts face more and more financial constraints, the arts are often one of the first things to be trimmed in the budget. Indeed, many penny-wise and pound-foolish observers ask if having a large central theater is relevant in today's high schools. Hicksville's residents and taxpayers voted with an emphatic yes, and your Board of Education could not be more appreciative of your support. Your vote of confidence with your wallet and your heart proved that in Hicksville, it is still possible to have a place where music, plays, and other performance arts can truly have a home in the modern high school. A place where a key... Thank you so much. A place where a key tenet of the 21st century learning, focusing on educating the whole student, is alive and thriving as we collectively strive to develop the communication and presentation skills, creativity, and passion for learning in every student. A place where the larger Hicksville community, as evidenced tonight, can gather for special events. In reflecting upon tonight's dedication, of our treasured theater to Charles Chuck Arnold. I did a bit of homework on Chuck, and I hope I don't offend you by calling you Chuck, and was greatly moved by the adoration of many for Chuck as a music teacher, mentor, and inspiration. In no time at all, my Google search led me to so many tributes from former students who shared thoughts such as, I grew up in Levittown and was educated in the Hicksville Public Schools. There were many special teachers over the years, but there was one who especially stands out in my mind. That was Chuck Arnold, my Hicksville High School music teacher. Mr. Arnold went out on a limb and encouraged me to consider a career in music at a time when music wasn't even considered a path to choose. But I knew that I loved music, and the mere fact that a teacher thought there could be a real possibility for me encouraged me to follow my dreams. A good teacher makes a world of difference in the life of a child. It did in mine. Another former student said he was absolutely my inspiration for becoming a music major. I was his accompanist from 10th to 12th grades and learned more in those years than I ever could have hoped for. I still remember his wonderful warm-up music and his encouragement in my non-musical theater experiences. Another student said, I really enjoyed singing in Mr. Arnold's chorus of thousands at the end of our concert. It was great being part of Chucky's Cherubs. Thought that was particularly memorable. I could go on, but I will not. Chuck, on behalf of the Hicksville Board of Education, we thank you for all you have given to thousands of Hicksville students and their families. You truly made a lifelong impression and difference for so many, as only a committed and passionate educator can. I thank you and wish you all the best tonight and in all the future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Judson. And now I would like to introduce our Nassau County Legislator, Ms. Rose Walker. Rose?
Thank you so much, Mrs. Litzman, and thank you for having me here tonight. I actually, at the same time, had Beth Page's Senior Awards Night, and I don't miss our awards nights and try to get to everything, but I said there's something really, really special in Hicksville tonight, so someone's going to have to cover me there, and I'm going to be here in Hicksville to honor a very, very special man on a very, very special night. Unlike many of you, I can say I had the pleasure of attending Hicksville High School. I grew up in Hicksville. I've lived here my entire life, started out in Fork Lane, and my parents were very, very active in certainly PTA and all the activities here. They were also very active in our parish. When they moved here, we didn't have Holy Family Parish, and they helped to build that parish here in Hicksville. And then they helped to build the school. And when I was going into 4th grade, my younger brother into 1st grade, my older brother into the junior high, he went to the junior high, and my parents had to make that decision. Will she go to Holy Family or go to Hicksville? And it was very, very difficult for them. But they chose for me to go to Holy Family, and then I went to Catholic high school. And I had a great time in high school. But if I have one thing to do over, I would have come to Hicksville High School, the high school in my hometown where so many of my friends came to school, and I would have been lucky enough to have Mr. Arnold. So that's the one thing that, like I said, not a regret. I mean, I had a great time in high school, but if I could do it over, that would be my choice. My husband did attend Hicksville High School, graduate of 1965. Unfortunately, John passed away almost 23 years ago. But my children all attended Hicksville High School, and next year my oldest grandchild will be attending Hicksville High School. So we kept it up. Grandma just made a mistake. Maybe one day I could get a Hicksville High School diploma. But tonight is a very, very special night. And Chuck Arnold, I just have to say, you've touched more lives than you will ever, ever know. So many people, you've made a difference. Not just in their love for music and every aspect of the arts, but you made a difference in their lives. You set them on a path that they were excited to follow. You gave them so much strength and courage and just were there for them. And many students, let's be honest, many students come to school because of a love for something, one particular thing, whether it be music or drama or the arts. And of course, they have to go to their other classes, but that's what holds them together. And you were that glue for so many students. Even students that might not have pursued the music career, you touched their lives. And I cannot thank you enough. And we've been very blessed here in Hicksville because when you did step away, we've been blessed with many others who have given so much that we are just an outstanding school district in the arts and music, and we are very lucky. So I thank you. I thank our school board. I thank Mrs. Litzman, and certainly Mr. Arnold, I thank you so much for all you have done for so many of our Hicksville kids. So I do have 2 citations that I'd like to present. These are good citations. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Litzman if you would come up. This is for the school district to commemorate this night. And Mr. Arnold, if you would please join us, and this is for you.
Thank you, Rose. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Rose, and thank you, Mr. Arnold. The New York State School Music Association was a very important part of Mr. Arnold's career. And this evening, we have Mr. Steve Schopp, former NYSSMA president, and the current NYSSMA president, Mr. Russ Fonz. Mr. Schopp and Mr. Fonz, will you please come forward?
Well, on behalf of the New York State School Music Association, or NYSSMA as most people know it, and our president, Russ Fonz, it is an honor and a privilege to congratulate the Hicksville School District for naming the high school theater for an outstanding educator, Chuck Arnold. I remember Chuck as an icon in the field of choral music, and his choirs always set the standards by which other school choirs were measured. He was active in all facets of music education in Nassau County and served NYSSMA in many capacities, most notably as chair of the New York All-State Choir. And that's a pretty big job, and it's a pretty big deal. I knew Chuck personally, however, as my daughter's voice teacher. And I had the privilege to work as a colleague with his wife, Kathy, who was also an outstanding educator. Chuck Arnold, I should mention too, Rose Walker said before how you changed so many lives, and you may remember my daughter Lori as a violinist who sang. You probably don't realize she went off to college as a violinist and came out as a voice major and got a vocal performance degree and was a professional singer for a couple of years. I trace that back to you, Chuck. You were her first real voice teacher, and you made that happen, and I thank you for that. Chuck Arnold is not only a great teacher, he's a wonderful person. And for him to be honored in this most appropriate way is a great moment for Hicksville High School and for music education. NISBA would like to recognize the Hicksville School District on this very special occasion. So may I present Mr. Russ Fons, NISBA president, who traveled here all the way from upstate Watertown for this presentation.
Mr. Arnold, I don't know if our paths have ever crossed, but they probably did back in the day. I too am a retired choral educator, and I too was an all-state chorus chair. So a few years after, but I have a feeling we may have crossed paths. But you retired in '89? 89, okay, so we overlapped a little bit. I have such a great respect and admiration for you. I would like to ask my NISMA colleagues, Ed Chirillo, who is the president-elect for NISMA, and Ruth Breidenbeck to come up and join us. Ruth is the Nassau County Zone Representative. And again, I'm thrilled to be here from Watertown, so I did come down and for this special night. Mrs. Litzman, on behalf of the New York State School Music Association, we'd like to recognize the Hicksville Public School System upon the occasion of the dedication of the high school theater in honor of Charles Chuck Arnold, longtime Hicksville music teacher, former NISMA All-State Chorus Chair. From Russ Fons, President of the New York State School Music Association. Congratulations. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Shop and Mr. Fons. Mr. Chiarello, good to see you again. Mr. Arnold, you helped to fill the air of Hicksville High School with music for so many years. And tonight, our present Hicksville High School Chamber singers want to fill your air, soul, and heart with music under the direction of Michelle Shmuel to perform for you. Our students are in the back and they will come forward.
Sad winds may your voice swell. Tears, tears, where my heart flows. And ever with silence where hope was. Silence where hope was. Silence where hope was. Silence where hope was. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. Going to live with God. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. I want to meet my mother. Going to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. No more, no more, ripping in a well, no more, no more, ripping in a well, no more, no more, ripping in a well, going to live with God. No more, no more, ripping in a well, no more, no more, ripping in a well, no more, no more, ripping in a well. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world, the troubles of the world. Sooner we'll be done with the troubles of the world, going home to live with God. I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. Going to live with God. I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. I want to meet my Jesus. Going to live with God. I'm going to live with God. I'm going to live with God.
Thank you, Ms. Shmuel, and our chamber singers. Thank you. Can we have just one more round of applause for our students? Thank you. Thank you. What better testament to your power as a teacher and in gratitude for your mentoring than to hear directly from your past students? We have a few alumni speakers who would like to address you directly this evening, Mr. Arnold. Our first speaker is a graduate of the class of 1971 and is an Emmy and Grammy-nominated conductor, a vocal educator at the Manhattan School of Music, and a choral specialist. She is currently music director and conductor of Essential Voices USA, which collaborates with the New York Pops on the Carnegie Hall subscription series and produces the Composer Speaks series. Her chorus has had a residency with the National Public Radio, has performed at the Rockefeller Center tree lighting, and the Macy's 4th of July Spectacular. Please welcome Judith Klerman.
Wow. Thank you for inviting me to speak at this momentous occasion. It's special for me to come back to Hicksville and the Hicksville Public Schools because I would like to do something I've never had the opportunity to do before, and that is to thank the administration and the Hicksville Public Schools for providing me with such a great academic and musical education. Thank you. Perhaps a line from Henry Purcell's madrigal that we used to sing in these hallowed halls sums up our feelings best. Let us celebrate our happy, happy loves. Let's pipe, pipe and dance. Let's pipe, pipe and dance. Dance and laugh, laugh and sing. We're celebrating you, Chuck. You taught us all how to do those things that Purcell wrote in his piece. Be happy and love making music. Dance the musical line in our bodies. Laugh during rehearsals and sing with smiles on our faces. You knew your craft. You made music fun. You taught us how to count and be accurate. And you taught us how to stretch our musical imaginations. We all loved coming to room 178, and we loved performing in this auditorium, our musical home. Along with madrigals and chorale, you were also my private piano teacher for many years. You introduced me to great music, and oh my God, were you patient with me when I came totally unprepared because I had too much homework. But now I would like to share some memorable conversations I have had about you with two of my esteemed colleagues, two prominent American composers when I taught at the Juilliard School. The first story I remember was telling the composer John Corigliano that I was forever thankful to you, Chuck, because you introduced us not only to Fern Hill that he wrote, but to the countless scores of the composers of the American schools, Leonard Bernstein, Aaron Copland, John Corigliano, Vincent Persichetti, and William Schumann. He was so impressed that a high school chorus had tackled these works. But next story, I remember watching a movie in your music history class. We were talking about the development of computer music. And it's when I first heard the name Milton Babbitt, the computer guru and trailblazer. So many years later, I used to talk to Milton all the time at Juilliard about music, but I often brought you up, Chuck. And I told him about this movie, and he remembered every bit of it. Milton had a photographic memory. But one day he asked me why I was directing choral activities there, and I said, you know, it goes back to high school. My director taught us our basic music skill sets, how to navigate through a score. This is important stuff. How to isolate and rehearse the difficult parts of a score, but then perform it with panache and love and accuracy. Finally, I've made vocal and choral music my life's work. You, Chuck, imbued in me the many basic ingredients about music that I use every single day of my life. And I'm pleased to be telling you in front of this esteemed audience that no matter where and when I make music, every musical phrase, every piece I play, conduct, or sing has had and will continue to have part of you and your teaching in it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please stay well and go from strength to strength.
Thank you, Judith. Our next speaker is a graduate of the class of 1966 and spent 37 years as a music educator in Connecticut. I would like to introduce Mr. Jim Kleiner, but unfortunately, Jim could not be here this evening, but he's asked me to share his thoughts. In 1966, during the last month of my senior year at Hicksville High School, it was well known around the music department that I was headed toward a career in music education. I had been inspired over the years by several music faculty members in the Hicksville schools to teach instrumental music. One day I was walking by the choral room when suddenly an arm with a large hand reached out and guided me into the room. Of course, it was Mr. Arnold. His words to me were, "You know, Jim, as part of being a music teacher, you're going to have to sing. I would strongly recommend you join the summer chorus." I thought about his words for a few days and ultimately signed up. That was a great experience for me and so much fun. That fall, as a freshman at SUNY Fredonia, the requirement was that all music education freshmen and sophomores had to sing in the festival chorus. The chorus had been scheduled to sing Handel's Messiah with the Buffalo Philharmonic around the holidays. However, due to a communication mishap between Fredonia and the Buffalo Philharmonic, the chorus did not start preparing for the concert until 2 weeks before the scheduled performance. So the Fredonia Festival Chorus conductor asked that only those students who had sung Messiah in the past to be part of a 100-voice group that would rehearse and go perform. Of course, I volunteered, even though I had never sung the work. That might be Jim, right? But had heard it performed on a few occasions by the Hicksville Community Orchestra and Chorus. As it turned out, the experience of singing that work with conductor Lucas Foss and the BPO was the most profound musical experience of my entire 4 years at Fredonia, including the many wonderful experiences I had playing my clarinet. And I had been given the initial encouragement and confidence by Mr. Charles Arnold. And Mr. Arnold, of course, was right. During a 37-year career as an instrumental music educator, I found myself singing every day. So thank you, James Kleiner, and I hope you could see it on the live stream and be part of us. Our next speaker is a graduate from the class of 1986 and has earned degrees in music education and performance. She has worked as an assistant principal at daycare and finds great pleasure in teaching movement and music. Please welcome Dana Scahill.
hope you remember me. My name was Dana Tyrone back in '86. I can't even believe I'm standing here. I cry already. Mr. Arnold, I'm so excited to be here and can't believe how many years have gone by. I just wanted you to know that you're my biggest inspiration and made the years in chorale and madrigals my fondest memories. My favorite times were singing around the piano and learning the great songs that you always taught us. I can't even remember one right now, but I think we sang Old Black Water, which was like one of my favorites. And you were, by the way, the best piano player ever. You are the true piano man. I remember the day you were walking around with your headphones on and you were listening to We Are the World. And you just had to get all the parts right because you gave me Cyndi Lauper's part. And what a great concert that was. And then you came in another day and you said, okay, here's the news about Barry. And the next thing we knew, we were all in a bus going to Radio City to sing with Barry Manilow for 10 nights in a row. Who does that? I still talk about it today to anybody that meets me. I'm like, oh, by the way, I sang with Barry Manilow. Oh, I remember you standing on the, remember those things along? You were like so scared, like of height. Oh my God, that was so much fun. So, it was good. So I'm standing here today because of you. As you may remember, I wasn't the best student. I was also in trouble a lot. Not the sharpest note on the staff, but bump. And I remember you pulling me out of ISS, and I couldn't have been happier to get out of there, knowing you really cared about me and wanting me to come to rehearsal. So that was a really special moment in my life. I remember a concert that I almost didn't make, but I worked it out to show up at the last minute. It was when we had a composer write a song for us. I don't remember who he was, but we had this special concert and he wrote a special song for us. Do you remember who it was? No. But anyway, I showed up at the last minute and you handed me a rose. And we're so happy that I had shown up that when I thought I couldn't. And you gave me the Music Honor Award that year. And it just made my life. So I came here to thank you for all those wonderful experiences. Because of you, I became a music teacher. I started studying music at Nassau Community College. And in 1989, when you were retiring, I got a phone call because I was working in the Nassau Community music office. And you called and asked me if I'd gotten your resume. I was like, what? Me? I don't know what happened after that, but it was after that moment that I decided I was going to be a music teacher. And I became a classical guitar major at Nassau and then went on to Queens College to study music education. I then moved on to Pennsylvania, and from that moment on, I became a mommy and me music teacher, and have been doing it for the past 25 years. Thank you. Some of my students have really gone on, even though I taught for such young children, many of them have become Broadway singers. I have one student who is a really great guitar player, and he now works under the producers of Bruno Mars. And every time his mother sees me, she's like, I can't believe that he plays guitar like that. And it was all because you showed him how to play Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And it was from that day on that he never stopped playing music. And it really wasn't because of me, it was because of you. So I thank you so much for my years here, even though they were only 3 years, you made my life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you. Our next speaker is also a graduate of the class of 1986 and is a survivor of 9/11 as a member of the New York Fire Department. So please welcome Bobby Sen. There's Bobby Sen.
I tried to keep that out of this. Good evening. First, thank you to the chorus. You really brought back some great memories. You were wonderful. Good evening. As mentioned, my name is Bobby Sen. I stand before you tonight as a proud graduate of the class of 1986. Considering the many things going on today, war, illness, crime, and the list goes on, it's wonderful to be gathered together for a good reason. Yes. Seeing so many old faces in the room and before this is a blessing, and I'm extremely humbled to be standing before you this evening and being allowed to speak about not only this room, but also our honored guest. Also, after seeing many of my fellow classmates and discussing grandkids, kids' retirement age, 2/3 of the room is due for a colonoscopy. So thank you for that reminder. I'll be notifying my gastroenterologist tomorrow. My wife has her hand on her face. That's good. I know there are many of my contemporaries who would also like to be here this evening, and whether it's geography, scheduling, conflicts, or other life events going on, they sadly cannot be with us this evening. One of those who I worked on very hard to come was Frank Walker, graduate of the class of 1985. Frank is home watching via video. Like myself, Frank holds this room and the room just behind us very close to our hearts and our memories as to what went on in these two rooms helped mold us into who we are today, specifically our sincere love for the arts and especially our love for music and singing. I was first selected to be in chorus in elementary school. I continued into junior high school and then on to high school. I didn't know anything about Mr. Arnold when I first came here. I've always had anxiety when starting new things. Becoming a high school student was no exception to that, and in fact, it was more anxiety-filled than usual. I can honestly say that the first place I felt comfortable was going to chorus. From day one, Chuck was cool. And Chuck was smooth. He always had a spring in his step as he traversed the hallways or when he entered the room. During chorus, he'd quietly walk to the piano, sit down, and roll us right into warm-ups. He made transitioning from a junior high school kid to a high school kid much easier, and to a kid with the level of anxiety I had, it was worth millions. As sophomore year turned into junior year, the chance of singing with the Madrigals, a small hand-selected group of chorus members, became reality. Hold on, my age is catching up to me. Oh, I can see it. Being part of that group was such an honor and a great experience, especially as Dana mentioned, when we were asked to sing backup for Barry Manilow at Radio City Music Hall for over a week of shows in the fall of 1984. That has come back to haunt me in the firehouse occasionally. That the big, tough Brooklyn fireman sang for Barry Manilow. Even at 53, it's still a bragging point for me, though. Later that school year, Chuck called me into his office in his deep voice and asked me to try out for the all-state chorus. The fact that he had the confidence in me to even attempt this was a huge boost. He gave me 100% of himself, his time, and his experience. I'm sure he doesn't remember this, but it's almost 37 years later, and I can still recall him saying as I walked out of the audition, "You did really well, and I'm proud of you." At the time, to a 16-year-old kid who was always questioning himself as to whether he was doing the right thing, well, Chuck, that's one of the many thank you messages I have for you tonight. As junior year became senior year, also brought a brand new head of the theater department. In the fall of 1985, Judy Passeltiner joined the staff of Hicksville High School. And with her came a new energy to this room. The school musical was chosen, and it was Grease. We had a lot of people audition. The show was cast around the Christmas break. For the next 3 months, myself, along with some other people here this evening, Kathy Hebra and Tricia Lachelle. Some of us were given the most treasured gifts during that 3-month period. We spent 5 days a week in this room under the direction of Mr. Arnold, Judy Passeltina, and our technical director, the late Jim Quinlan. What a gift to all of us. They made and molded us into a group of young singers and actors. Throughout the hundreds of hours of rehearsals, the energy in this room was palpable. They took a bunch of knucklehead kids and put together a show for our classmates, our family, and our friends. For me, it was one of the most precious memories of my time here in Hicksville as a student. Tonight, we are here gathered to honor Mr. Arnold by bestowing his name upon this very special room, a room that has molded character, sprouted and blossomed talents, that is carried on for lives and then passed on to children and grandchildren. Generations of talent have graced this stage. Many of them have Mr. Arnold to thank for that. This room is a very, very special place. To the fine arts students for decades past and decades to come, the gift of being on this stage is exactly that, a true gift. After graduating in 1986, I moved on to college and then on to the rest of life. Someone once said life is a circle. Well, those words are so very true as I returned to this room only a few years ago to present a program on emotional wellness to the students, staff, and community. The moment I re-entered this room, a flood of wonderful memories came rushing back. I told a bunch of funny stories about my time here with the group I was with. A good handful of fellow graduates also attended that evening, and it was a mini reunion of friends and yet another gift. Once again, this room being the catalyst for positive energy and a new memory to hold dear. Another thank you, as you, Chuck Arnold, made being in this room a very good place to be. Chuck, I haven't seen you in 36 years. Don't I look great? That doesn't mean I haven't thought of you or forgotten you and the gifts you've given me. You have always been and will always be the first and most influential person I think of when Hicksville High School comes up in conversation. All I can say is thank you. You are a blessing to this school and to the thousands who grew and have learned from you. The thousands of kids who passed through the doors of this room, led and guided through the world of music by you, will always make us eternally grateful for having us leave better people with an even better and greater love of music. Finally, I'm sure that Tom Buddes and J. David Apt are sitting somewhere on a cloud with a glass raised to you. As you are permanently and rightly made part of this room, this school, and this community of very, very thankful students. Mr. Arnold, thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Our next speaker is a graduate of the class of 1988. He co-hosts the Knock 'em Dead Company radio show and is also the writer, director, and performer of over 20 years at the Knock 'em Dead Murder Mystery Theater Company, which tours the East Coast. Please welcome Tony Walker.
How do you follow that? Being here just really reminds me just how many great people, we just are here in Hicksville. Teachers, students, everybody. Just a lot of great people here, and I'm honored to be here. And I just want to say hi to Miss Litzman. You were my 9th grade science teacher. My favorite science teacher. But I am a little confused why I'm last, because you have, Juilliard teachers, you have hero firemen, and then just this guy who works at a comedy club. I'm a little confused. Especially Bobby, he's got a lot, he's got better hair than me. All right. So I'll get to my speech. I do want to point out, I was fortunate, Stephen Goldstein invited me to his house a few years ago to visit Mr. Arnold. It was the first time I've seen him since high school, and it was a wonderful moment. We hugged. He looked at me and said, "Who the hell are you?" I'm kidding. All right, so my name is Tony Walker. I graduated in 1988. The musical that the Hicksville High School was performing in 1988 was Cole Porter's Anything Goes, directed by Judy Pasaltina, and musical director, of course, was Mr. Arnold. Miss Pasaltina, affectionately known as Miss P, put something together for the students that were in the play that would require us missing 2 days of school, which was all I needed to know. I didn't care what we were doing. 2 days of school, I'm in. But little did I know that these 2 days would completely change my life. Little backstory, I am not a singer. Thank you, Bobby, for mentioning my brother Frank. The good brother that I am, I had totally forgot to mention him in here, so thank you, Bob. But he's the singer. Frank, who graduated in '85, he's a singer. I was just his little punk brother. And acting was never a thought. It was just something I got into to meet girls. And definitely singing was just out of the question. Again, Frank's a singer. I just didn't have the nerve to do it. Didn't think I was very good. I mean, I sang in chorus, but you can blend in with all the other kids and not be heard. And especially singing solo. I mean, that just terrified me. So, but then for the show Anything Goes, Miss P, of course, gave me a role. The role of Moon-Faced Martin, if anybody's familiar with the show. What's that? There you go. That's the song. Yep. Moon-Faced Martin, a hilarious part, but it does require singing a whole song solo, which I was terrified. I was terrified of doing that. I didn't have the confidence, and I resisted a lot. I was trying to come up with, schemes to get out of it somehow while still playing the role. I don't know. In fact, I remember going into room 178. Remember they had, all the big steps, almost set up like the bleachers, where all the chorus would sit. And Mr. Arnold had me stand all the way in the back while you were at the piano in the front, and you had, because you wanted me to sing bold and loud, to get the confidence going and get me to sing it. And I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. And I was resisting so much, you actually got up from the piano. This is a true story. He got up from the piano. He came up to me. He grabbed the sheet music, pulled it out of my hands, closed it, told me to get out. He was a little more polite than that, but because he is very smooth and very cool, as Bobby mentioned. But yeah, I was out of the room. But despite being thrown out of the room, Mr. Arnold and I had a great relationship. Really, we did. I mean, I think you all can agree with me. It's such a presence. I mean, she's, just so tall, but talented and knowledgeable, smooth and cool, like Bobby pointed out. Just a giant of a man, physically and metaphorically. And he just had such an effect on me and obviously hundreds and thousands of other students. So getting back to my story about missing 2 days of school, Miss P put together this thing for all the seniors that were in the play, where we would go to all the Hicksville elementary schools and perform the musical numbers. I don't know if it was a promotional thing. I don't know why she did that, but it was great. It was a great thing. We sang all the musical numbers, and of course, I had to sing mine. And so this was it. This was it. Me singing a complete song by myself for the first time. Like I said, I was terrified. As Stephen just gave us a little sample just now, the song was called "Be Like the Bluebird." Fortunately for me and anybody that was listening, it's a comedic song, so it doesn't have to be sung well. And but I still couldn't quite nail it in rehearsals. Again, just very uncomfortable singing, so I just couldn't quite nail it. But then we did this trip to all the elementary schools, and we had to sing the songs with only Mr. Arnold playing the piano. There was no orchestra, no big band. Like when you're performing with an orchestra, if something goes wrong, if somebody misses a cue or something, then the song can become a train wreck. But in this case, it was just Mr. Arnold on the piano. So, so we're at the first elementary school, and it's time to sing my song, and I start it, "Be Like the Bluebird," and Mr. Arnold starts improvising on the piano. I look over Mr. Arnold, and he's got this devilish little grin on his face that I can still see to this day. and but what was great about it was that I didn't even think twice. I just went with him, and wherever he was going on the piano, I was just improvising with him, and it was just so much fun. And it was just a big moment for me. It was something in me. That's the moment I realized I want to do this. This is what I'd like to do in life. I just couldn't picture myself doing anything else after that. And every elementary school we went to after that, the improvisation just increased. And he had more fun on the piano, and I just had more and more fun following him. And we give each other little looks along the way, to see where he's going, what's going to happen. And the kids were picking up on it, and they were laughing. It was just amazing. So from that moment, and then it helped my confidence with singing. Came right up on this stage here in March of 1988 and had my musical number and nailed it. And the dream of joining the drama club to meet girls, that song solidified it. So, so thank you, Mr. Arnold, for helping me meet girls. But almost as important as meeting girls, I also found my calling from all of that. My life has been about acting and comedy ever since. So whether Mr. Arnold meant to or not, this music teacher became a mentor to an acting and comedy performer. And by the way, Mr. Arnold is more than a music teacher. He's also a funny guy. I always knew I was doing something right on this stage. The piano, right? Your piano was right here during the musicals. Sometimes he'd even lay on the floor and put his feet up on the piano bench during the show if he had time. Do you remember that? He's still looking at me and saying, "Who the hell are you?" But I knew I was doing something right on that stage if I heard Mr. Arnold laughing. He had such a big, hearty laugh, and I listened for it. And it just meant, it meant that I was doing something right. Comedy and acting have become more than what I do. It's become who I am. I can't picture myself never performing. And sometimes the life of a comedian / actor is not glamorous, as I sometimes perform in some dive bar. But sometimes when I get to work with people like actor, impressionist Kevin Pollak, or a comedian like Joey Cola, it's pretty freaking cool. Either way, I love every minute of it. My life would have been awful without it. Teachers have made such an impact on our lives as we're growing up. The lessons I learned from teachers like Mr. Arnold are lessons I still carry with me to this day. There is no way to properly thank the teachers, who help us along the way, unless you name an auditorium after them, I guess. I made myself laugh. There really is no way to properly say thank you, but I'll always try. I'm even in touch with Miss Pasaltina. I thank her all the time, and I tell her I love her. She's probably getting a restraining order. But I am thrilled to have this opportunity to be here tonight and relive all these great memories and to see you again and get this opportunity to speak. So thank you. I don't know if it was Ms. Litzman or whoever said I can come up here. I appreciate it. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Arnold, for the laughs, the wonderful memories, the lessons, the inspiration, and for getting me started in a life that I love. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. And I see you're still cutting up the class. You still have that cute little giggle laugh that I couldn't help but turn around and start laughing in class as well. So thank you, Tony. And for our last speaker, who has reached stardom because, Chuck, you are a star. Please welcome Billy Joel.
Thank you. Good evening. This is very cool. It's for the coolest teacher there ever was. I first met Chuck Arnold when I was here at Hicksville High School cutting class. There was a nice Baldwin grand piano that I loved to play because the piano I had at home was a piece of junk. And I would cut class and play the piano. And from time to time, one of the staff or a janitor would pop in and say, "Are you supposed to be here?" I said, "Yes, I'm here to rehearse this piece that I've learned." And I would play. I'll show you. Switch on these things? Okay, we're on. Whoa, okay. So, ba 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 ba. Wailing away on this thing, and I'm just going at it, and I just feel like there's a shadow standing over me, and it's Chuck Arnold. He's looking at me and he's going, "You don't really know that piece, do you?" So I said, "No, I don't. Where are you supposed to be?" Because I was cutting class, obviously. And I was in some math thing. I don't remember what it was. It was geometry, trigonometry, colonoscopy, lobotomy. One of those classes. And I said, "But I don't like the class and I'm not going to go." So he goes, "Okay, I understand. But I want you to do something for me." I said, "What?" "But I want you to do something for me. Please don't report me to the principal. For, I'm obviously cutting a class." And then I explained the whole rigmarole, lobotomy, geometry. He goes, "Yeah, okay, I get it. But I want you to join my music history class." So I went, "Deal." Okay, great. And I joined his music history class, and it was really the best class that I'd ever had. It really was. One of the first things we did was we took a field trip to the cloisters on Upper Manhattan and Fort Tryon Park, and I discovered a part of New York City I never knew anything about, and it was wonderful. It was like going to Europe. It was fantastic, and I still go there from time to time. I bring whatever wife I'm with at the time, and it's very romantic. I said, "Look at this place." Also, Chuck was a judge at some of these Battle of the Bands competitions. We used to have Battle of the Bands. And the Battle of the Bands I was in was about like 1965, I think it was. The first part of it was at what used to be called Salisbury Park. Now it's Eisenhower Park. And we won. We won. We looked at each other. We won. All right, we're going on to the final, which was at the New York State Pavilion at the World's Fair. So we're watching these other bands rehearsing, and there's a band that comes out, and they've got these platform stands that they're standing on playing their instruments. And we thought, that's the end of that. They're going to win. They got platforms. We don't have any platforms. So I felt like a real smart ass, and I said, "Don't worry, I got the teacher or the judge right here in my pocket. We already won, and he ain't going to let us lose." We came in second. I want to thank Chuck for making sure my career didn't peak too early. Also, I don't know if people know this, but we were doing a recording of a song called Leningrad back in 1989 this was, and we were in the city at our recording studio, A&R Studios, and Chuck came in with the Hicksville High School chorus and directed this incredible choral part for the recording. And you can still hear it now. It's on the recording. So I went to his music history class. It was a wonderful class. It was the best class I ever had. And I enjoyed, even though I didn't go to school a lot, because I'm working till 2 or 3 in the morning. Who could get up at 7 for whatever lobotomy class it was? And but I did try to go to music history because it wasn't just about music or history. It was about the sweep of humanity. I mean, it was so interesting to learn about why Beethoven's music was resonated so much during the Napoleonic era. I mean, this is great stuff. Real humanity passing, through your head and understanding why music was so important in history. I was given an assignment to hand in before the end of the term. I was supposed to graduate in '67. So this is the year I'm supposed to write this essay. And Chuck picked the composer for me to write about. It was Richard Wagner, who was never one of my faves. He was pretty good. But I would have liked Beethoven and Mozart. It would have been easier. But I had to listen to a lot of Wagner. And I basically summarized my opinion of Richard Wagner in the essay that I handed in, which was essentially, his music is a lot better than it sounds, which is a direct steal from Mark Twain. But Chuck also said to me, you should really consider being a musician as a career. Now, no adult had ever said that to me in my life. Everyone who I knew would say, you're going to be a musician, you're going to die. You're going to be a drug addict, you're going to starve, you're never going to make any money. Nobody makes it as a musician, and don't do it. And Chuck said, you should consider being a professional musician. Now, that stuck with me, and I never forget it. And I never was able to shake it off, These are words to live by, and I did live by them. And I will forever be grateful to him, because it's not like I picked music. Music picked me. You just made me recognize that. So I want to thank you for that. And I think it's a wonderful tribute to this man to have a theater named after you. I got a little park in Cold Spring Harbor named after me, because I knew the guy who worked for the town. I thought, and he said, they're naming a park after you in Cold Spring Harbor. I thought it was like Central Park. It's like this big. You walk in, you walk out. But this is a wonderful honor for this man who has impacted so many of our lives. And I want to thank you for being my teacher, Chuck Arnold.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you very much. I would now like to introduce the Alumni Chorus under the direction of Steve Goldstein, and I believe conducted, Judith, you're going to conduct them? Okay. What better testament to you as a teacher to have your former students perform for you years later, as they have carried your magic with them, music within their hearts all these years. Alumni Chorus?
Don't get up yet.
Nope.
We only rehearsed once last night. Some of us haven't sung this music in 50 years. So you'll have to excuse if there are a few bumps along the way. Some of you weren't there at the dinner last night, which turned out to be a dress rehearsal. Most of it went well. We could have used more, but we didn't have the benefit of rehearsal time to do that. So we're not quite as polished. So you can get that. Sopranos are going to go up here, altos, tenors, and basses. Taller ones in the back, shorter ones in the front. That's it.
or is cool. Oh, you can't hear me? My sister's always telling me to shut up. I'm so loud. I said, I'm using my teacher voice. Chuck Arnold taught me how to support. American Panorama in 1964. And then he proceeded to do that same number at every graduation for I don't know how many years. But this chorus here, our oldest member is from the class of 62. She came all the way from Salt Lake City. She sang with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Rita Paisani-Felt. And it goes all the way up to 1989 when Chuck retired. Judy Klorman, I had the honor of teaching my first year that I was here from 70 to 75. And even though I conducted last night, I'm deferring to this master conductor and this master musician. And you'll have to forgive whatever wrong notes I play in the piano because
We're doing what we did not do with Chuck. We're not rehearsed. So have fun.
that was our warm-up.
As a fortress, we pledge our
That was incredible. I'm happy I could wing it. I feel I have to say something important about the person at the piano. Stephen Goldstein. We met when he dragged me into singing a Hicksville summer chorus. I still remember the music we did that summer because he was so important to me. And when he came back to Hicksville to teach and I accompanied his chorus, it was a magical moment. And man, he loves you, Chuck, and we speak about you. And it's really, I have to tell you, he told me a few weeks ago, you know, you should conduct this stuff. And he sent me the music and I said, oh, I'll get up and I'll sing it. And tonight he said, Judy, you already are gonna conduct it? So this is the first time I'm here with these people. And I've done a lot of great things in my life and I'm overwhelmed with emotion. It's beyond coming back to this auditorium. I don't want to talk about me, but I have to say it's the first place I sang publicly, alone, and really made music. Really, really made music. I've worked with high school kids all over the world, and yes, with Juilliard and Manhattan students. And I remember getting up in front of a class I teach now called Ensemble Voice, and they couldn't get syncopation. I have to tell you this because I just told my husband Bruce this morning. And I said, damn it, Chuck Arnold taught me that. And it was at a piano lesson, I remember, it was no longer 4/4, it was syncopation. And the skills I garnered from him, maybe it took me 50 years to realize how much I really learned here, but I did. It really gave me the basis for being a successful musician. And this one has always been at my side, and he's really special, and he's been a super successful musician. And I honor him tonight, too. Thank you, Stephen.
Wow. 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 Chuck, you're some teacher. For them to carry that voice, that music you taught them all these years. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Judith. I think you all became 16 years old again, singing in Hicksville High School. It was wonderful. Thank you. And now, to address us, the man of the hour, Mr. Charles Chuck Arnold.
Yeah.
Man, is that a tough act to follow? I had the whole thing written out. Uh, Let me just skim this very quickly. Thank you to the Alumni Association, and thank you to Superintendent, and thank you to all of those who support good music or good teaching. And I had written down, with all of the skills in our music, there was one person who was the spark that got my career going, and that was Stephen at the piano, Steve Goldstein. So like most people, you got to look up where you're going and find out what's happening. And there's a lot of good things happening here at Hicksville. The chamber singers are now in the halls of fame. The band got first place up in Syracuse. The string quartets have been supported, and also you had a wonderful jazz pianist here. And there have been several awards from NAM that have been given on schools and their support. And Chad told me about it, that the applications are really quite strong. So I had a couple stories, but I tell you, it's better just to tell you that I had a girls' chorus once that saw fame, which was back in 18. And everything was chest voice, belt, belt, belt. So I had this beautiful little duet from Bach's Chris Laden Todesbaden, his fourth cantata. And I wanted the girls' chorus to be able to sing it. But they were all chest voice belters. So I said, you know, I want you to go home tonight and watch TV. And he said, oh, that's cool. I said, yeah, there'll be a woman named Julia Child. And I said, she's going to have a voice that is, today we're going to have peaches flambe. And I know it's going to be a goof, but I want you to come back and we'll do Julia Child, and you won't be self-conscious because you can hide behind the character Julia Child. So they came back and we sang God Bless America, as Julia Child might. So they kind of had fun, and then all of a sudden it kind of quieted down, and they realized that they had been in what was called the head voice, the voice that resonates in the head as opposed to the lower part. And they got it, and we did the little duet by Bach. It was a lovely duet between two women in Cantata 4. So part of the credits go to Julia Child. A very good part. And the peaches flambe was wonderful. The other thing I wanted to talk about was very quickly is that there was madrigals were rehearsing, and we were going to do a concert the next night. And there were 12 of them, really fine kids, fine singers. And I had to go answer the phone. So I said, keep going. It was Renaissance, 16th, 17th, 18th century. And I said, just keep it going, and I'll be right back as soon as I can. But I came back a little late, and the bell rang. And on the way out, this one kid said, you know, we really sing better if you don't conduct. I said, I beg your pardon. He said, no. He said, instead of our watching this. He said, you were in the other room on the phone. And we started, and we kept singing, and all of a sudden we started to phrase, we started to breathe together, we started to make our dynamics together. And one of the kids said, is this what you call an ensemble? And I said, yeah, it's an ensemble. And I said, so you think you can do it better without me, is that right? I said, okay, I'll write you a bunch of late passes. And in we go to the auditorium. So he set it up, and we set up, 6 and 6, 12 kids. And they sang, and it was beautiful. It was really stunning. And they were sang for about 5, 6 minutes, and then suddenly they stopped. Would you stop walking back and forth and back and forth? We're okay. Please sit down. It's a bit distracting. I wonder if you could. So from that point on, Madrigal's never had a conductor, and because they enjoyed, and I think it's the intent of our job as teachers is to teach people what they can be as older people, students, or whether it be adults, or whatever it is. So the last thing that I heard once, you heard them sing the Alleluia, which is almost the national anthem of choral people. And we took it to what's called NISMA, it's a competitive where you get rated. And I had to go do paperwork. And Pamela, are you here? Hi. She told me about this because Pam was a family court judge out in the West Coast, and I had a chance to go watch her installation. And afterwards I said, can you tell me what was one of the more significant things that you remember? And she said, it was doing the Alleluia without you. And it seems to be contagious. What happened was I was doing paperwork with the judges, and tell me again the guy who led it? Yeah. Lee Schulman. The one who said we ought to reverse. Yeah. I guess I came back down the hall, and I started to hear them sing. And what had happened, as Pam says, that Lee just said, well, let's do it, and I heard 60, 65 voices singing in that same thing, excuse me, that same thing that the Madrigal group is doing. They became an ensemble, and they sang it together because they knew it and they loved it. And the last thing I wanted to do was to go in and bust the damn thing up. I just stood out in the hall and listened. And I think there are 2 things that have happened to me, both of them without me conducting. And both of them were that people have begun and be able to work together, to work as an ensemble, or to work as a larger group, still in ensemble. And I think that's our job. I think we're not just teaching kids, I think we're teaching future parents. And I think if we're lucky enough to get them to think on their own and to be able to perform on their own, that's what our job is. And if it works, man, it's a real kick. And I don't know, you may have heard a lot about it tonight, just the fact that they got up there and sang, and it was like super. So I wanted to just read this and make sure that I understood it. I just had a pair of Amazon special readers that had died. So I want to do this somewhat dramatically. Did I write this? A handsome auditorium, a supportive community, and a strong fine arts department. What a pleasure. Thank you for sharing it with me. Take care.
Thank you, Chuck. And as a final tribute to you, if you could just remain with us here, we have a mock-up of the plaque which will hang outside the theater, this theater commemorating this space in your honor. And again, due to COVID and supply chains, the final bronze plate hasn't arrived yet. But when it does, we will send you a video of the installation, and a facsimile will be created in a smaller plaque that you can have in your home. So we'd like to show you what it looks like. It says, Charles Chuck Arnold Theater, in gratitude for inspiring a lifelong love of music and life in the students of Hicksville Public Schools. It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge by Albert Einstein. And it's dedicated on May 26, 2022. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. So in closing this evening, it's been a delight for me as well. As you heard, some of you, I was your teacher. I've worked with many of you as faculty members, and you are the most important people here this evening, the alumni coming back to honor a very cool and smooth guy, Chuck Arnold. So I stand on the shoulders of many. So I would like to say a special thank you again to all the alumni here this evening. To Steve, I'm sorry, but you are a nudge. But a beautiful, I was going to say, but a beautiful nudge, because when we had to cancel in 2020, it was Steve asking, probably maybe too much, but when are we going to do it again? And, you know, we had to do it this time, and I know the infection rate went up and it was getting a little scary, but I said, we have to do it. So whatever we did here tonight, please, we'll all leave here in good health and stay in good health. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, Judith, for conducting. Thank you to the alumni chorus. Wow, it's such a tribute to Chuck that you've held that music in your hearts all these years, and that singing was tremendous. And I invite you back here. I know it's a new auditorium, but you really deserve to see this new auditorium as you sang so much in the years in the old one. So welcome back to your new home of this auditorium. I also would like to thank you, alumni, for your special honor in suggesting that this auditorium be named after Chuck. And thank you to Chris Waters, our gracious host and our organizer, to Chad Wyman, our supervisor of fine arts, to Adam Clive in the back and all his technology crew for filming this and making the live stream available. and all those capabilities, and to the talent of our media specialist, Joanne Bucci, and our administrator for community and public information, Allison Bruno, and our renaming committee, Sunita Majikar, our secretary of the Board of Education, and we were joined by Chad Wyman, Ray Williams, Chris Waters, Joanne Bucci, and Allison Bruno, along with Dave Bell, and our buildings and grounds staff. So thank you for attending, and thank you, Chuck, for your inspiration and your teaching and your love of teaching and music. Please go in good health, always. Thank you.